Legion of Stars, Chapter 7. A New Quest. Lune ran to another courtyard with his new party. This area had a bit more pandemonium. The gas lanterns were lit and there were about 5 werewolves. To each lycanthrope, there were 1 to 2 legionnaires. Flank, the mall wielder whispered. Move from one to another. The archer grunted in the affirmative and started to peel off. Wait, Lune said. The archer stopped. Try landing this in some of them. Lune extended his hand with a vial of poison. The archer took it and doused 5 arrows in the poison. He then shot 3 arrows at once into the nearest werewolves and then 2 into those farther away. Now, let's move. The mall wielder charged into the fray. Lune ran to the nearest werewolf, clutching his sword blade in one hand. Lune jumped at it. Nocturman, his silver sword, bit and dug into the beast's flesh. With one hand on the blade and another on the hilt, Lune twisted Nocturman deeper, then yanked the sword out. The beast roared and swung its mighty claw around in a backhand that sent Lune flying. He landed in the wall of a building. Groaning, he peeled himself out of the stone wall and rushed the werewolf again. The mall wielder rushed to the lycanthrope too. He was running impossibly fast. The silver hammer sent a shower of sparks back as it skidded along the cobbles. With a deafening crack, the hammerhead landed in the side of the great beast and seemed to sink in 3 distinct times. Another robed figure appeared with a staff, swirling in front of him. A long gray beard that fell from his chin shook with the wind as he bellowed arcane words. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning shot forth from the staff and ran through the furry abomination. Lune was close enough now and he stabbed the beast's belly. A claw came down and Lune slid under the creature's legs and pierced into the werewolf's lower back with his sword. Another fuzzy elbow came back, but this time Lune was ready and sidestepped. The blow missed and landed in the ground. Lune could hear the intense crunching of the maul on the other side of the beast. The black-cloaked hammerer was putting in work. Lune mumbled an arcane word and 2 beads appeared by his head. As he attacked, they slammed into the lycanthrope. It was obvious the spell hurt. The creature bellowed again and went into a frenzy. A claw swept low, and Lune jumped off of it. Spinning in the air, he caught the monster's throat with his blade. Putting his other hand on the weapon, he threw himself into the attack. The sword buried deep into the creature's throat and sent it to the ground. "Ho!" the mall wielder cried. Lune looked up to see this great hammer high in the air. In one smooth motion, it fell flat onto Lune's sword, which was still embedded in the werewolf's throat. The blow sent Lune's blade through the neck of the beast, severing the head. Lune quickly rose. "To the next one!" the wizard called. The mall wielder and Lune looked at each other. Shaded face met frosty blue eyes. They nodded and ran to the nearest beast as they bellowed a battle roar. As they took care of 3 more, there were showers of blood and billowing roars. When it was time to take care of the last one, Lune stepped forward but was stopped by a withered hand on his shoulder. He turned to see the wizard. "That one's his, lad." He pointed a shriveled finger at another black-cloaked and silver-armored figure. Lune noticed it was the same man from the church and rooftops. He stood in front of what had to be the biggest werewolf. The cloaked figure wore no weapon but approached confidently. The wolf rushed. In a flash of light, a radiant scimitar appeared in his hand as he sidestepped and cut into the beast's side. The wolf came to a quick stop, slashed with its immense claw. The cloaked man blocked with a glowing shield and stabbed the wolf with a shimmering sword. The beast reared back and roared, readying a 2-claw attack. The cloaked man summoned a glimmering spear. He stabbed it through the werewolf. As the beast swung its arms down, the cloaked man slid under the lycanthrope's legs. He reached up and grabbed hold of the spearhead. The spear shimmered and shifted into a glaive. He grabbed it with both hands, and in a mighty swing, the furry abomination arced into the air and slammed into the cobbles, with the glaive's blade cutting up through its body and through the beast's skull. The cloaked man rose and whipped the glaive to the side. It flashed and dissipated into radiant dust. "What are you?" Lune asked in wonderment. "Blessed," the cloaked man responded. The old wizard stepped forward. "That should be the last of this place, lads." A hurrah passed through the legionnaires. "Who wants to go to the pub and initiate the newbie?" the mall wielder asked. Another hurrah passed through the legionnaires, so they set off for a tavern. The legionnaires all walked to a bar called the Lazy Leprechaun. On the trip to the tavern, many legionnaires broke off into dark alleyways and were replaced by, what appeared to Lune as, random travelers that happened to be the same height and build as the person who left. The only person who stayed in armor was the first man Lune met, the one from the Church of Selune, the one who said he was blessed. His hood stayed on and he never removed his armor. He only confirmed with a nod that the elves and men and 2 dwarves were a part of the party. The dwarf with the collapsed maul on his back nodded at Lune. A man patted Lune's shoulder. He turned to see an old man with a long beard and a smile. He also saw a young-looking elf. Well, young in the term of elves, though much older than Lune, who nodded as he noticed Lune. When they arrived at the tavern, the legionnaires all sat around a booth table. Lune saw now that there were about 11, including him. The cloaked man sat in the corner of the large bench. Everyone ordered drinks and hearty meals. The elven archer handed a note with his order to the waitress and gave a kind smile. Lune bent down to the dwarf next to him. "What's up with the elf?" "Difficulties with ghosties. When you excise something wrong or take too much time, strange effects can take place. Thankfully, he only lost his voice and not his vision." "Oh," Lune murmured. The elven archer turned to Lune and showed a kind smile. As they waited for food and after they were served, the party started talking amongst themselves. They all seemed like they had endless bonds. Lune smiled, remembering his old company, as the dwarf stood up on his seat and placed his hand on the table and threw most of his body over the rim just to yell at a human with a greatsword who had made a joke at his expense. The cloaked man was the only figure that just smiled and did not partake in the mayhem. Partway through the night, when the initial outburst turned to friendly conversation, he tapped his glass with a spoon. Everyone stopped and sat quietly, staring at the cloaked man. He cleared his throat. "Brothers and sisters, we gather tonight after a great hunt to welcome a new member of the Legion of Stars." He directed his spoon towards Lune. "Would you state your name?" Lune pushed his chair away from the table and stood. "I am Lune Arcanin of Weiss." The maul-wielding dwarf raised his tankard. "Hail, Lune!" A chant of "Hail!" cried through the party, as they all raised drinks, swilled back mugs, and sipped wines. "Tonight, based on the accounts that I have heard, you have truly proven your silver. There is an oath that you'll take later, but for now you are a knave in the Legion of Stars." A roar emanated from the gathering as even the timid-looking members pounded the table. "Hail the Legion! Thump, thump! Hail Lune! Thump, thump! Hail Minara, the Midnight Queen! Thump, thump!" And then they all drank, downing tankards and glasses in one fell swill. The conversation after this went back to the mood of what it was at the beginning of the night out. The cloaked man extended a hand over the table to Lune, who shook it. "Welcome, lad. You're one of us now," he said. "I heard some negative responses when you asked titles on the way here. If you wish to know names now, just ask. They will be given freely. I am called Locke among the men." Locke released Lune's grip and went back to a pleasant conversation with a more mild member of the party. Lune put down his dwarven coffee to see a note beneath his coaster. In Elven it read, "I am a Susmir. If you do not mind, could I speak into your mind?" Lune looked up and met a Susmir's gaze. Lune then heard a soft and quiet voice in his head. "Hail, Lune." Lune gave a Susmir a quizzical look. "Ah." The long-bearded wizard leaned in next to Lune. "I see you now know a Susamir's special ability." "How does he do that?" "Being late to excise someone can give both boons and banes." "Huh." Lune turned to the wizard. "By the way, what are you called?" "My name is James Corsi. I am an old scholar in the studies of evocation. I have been with the company since Locke saved me from a dragon. They like to keep wizards, you know. Terrible bastard made me do such awful things. Never become friends with the Red Dragon. It was a very bad time. I believe I've been with Locke the longest, just longer than him." James directed a finger at the dwarf, who had a maul on his back. "And what about you?" "My name is Krishman Holgeth, and I am unimportant." Why are you here?" Krishman belched. "Pays good." Lune shrugged and looked around the rest of the table. They had all split into chatting amongst themselves in groups of 3. Only Locke sat and listened to the others talking with a slight grin. The greater part of the party had left the tavern around midnight and went on to their personal lives. The only remaining members were James, Krishman, Susmir, and Locke. Lune leaned back and sipped his coffee. "I take it you're the original 4. Locke spoke over the rim of his mead glass. "What makes you think that?" "When everyone left, you stopped talking. As though you already know everything about each other." "Interesting assumption," James mumbled into his wine. Lune continued, "And you all have those." He pointed to a tattoo on each of their necks. All of them rubbed their marks. They were all different, but each was a part of the same 9-diamond symbol on the back of Lune's jacket. That is, it was the symbol, but a different diamond was emphasized on each one. Lune found it interesting that Locke's was a diamond just next to the sword's blade under the eye with a black iris. James's was the second from the sword under the white eye. Kreshman's was the third under the black eye. Lune couldn't spot what Asusamir's was, but he made a bet it was under the white eye. He seemed to be a gentle soul, so it only made sense. The light eye symbolized the loving form of Saliun. The dark eye showed her attitude during the new moon. Cruel, callous, and deadly. "Good eyes," Locke said. "Yes, we are the first 4 and the only ones from our homeland." "So you're not from Tel'adar?" "No, son, we aren't," James said, turning to Lune. "We also do not hail from the Empire of the West, nor the great deserts of the East. We come from far over the vast seas, an island home far away." "That is enough, James." Locke put down his mead. "He already knows more than the others." "To be fair, the others didn't ask," Kreshman mumbled in his deep, sailor-like voice. Asusamir spoke into everyone's mind. "Kreshman has a point, but Locke is our leader and we must do as he says. To be honest, and if it were a vote, I do not care much of what we tell people. Not like anyone would believe us anyways." These last bits came as a mumble. Lune found the way Asusamir spoke to be very realistic. He paid attention to who was where and adjusted his volume in their mind. Lune knew this because he had changed seats throughout the night, and Asusamir accounted for the difference in distance somehow. "Thank you, Asusamir," Locke said. "Sorry, Lune, but we did just take you on. You fought like a madman, to be fair, but some things cannot be told." "Fair enough. I get it." Lune went to magically light a pipe, but James was faster. Lune nodded in thanks and continued. "So, what's up with that werewolf pack? You said they were called the Pack of Sarek?" "Yep." Locke nodded. "Got intel on them when we were out west, near the dead city you call Pyros." "Why weren't the king's servants and archmages dealing with it?" "Left it to us. We're licensed, we asked, and we're quiet. King's servants would have been alarming. Just imagine seeing a killing machine in your quarter, especially since they don't talk much, so it's not like they're going to tell you why they're there." "The pack had been acting weird lately, too," James chimed in. "For the first time since we've been here, so around 2 years, they've been acting coordinated and led by someone other than their alpha." "How do you know?" "We killed their alpha a week ago," Greshman said, "yet they're still acting the same way and didn't even stall to find out who was the next leader." "Even more than this has happened," Locke continued. "There have been problems in Small Summit and Bainsley. Even Fairfall got overrun by whites being led by vampires. Monstrous outbreaks have spiked in the past 3 months." "Around the time Strahd got loose," Lune thought. "It's most interesting because they seem to be led by silver-tongued vampires. I've never seen anything like it. Normally monsters are so busy fighting each other that our job is made easy. Most of the planning and such seems to be coming from Wildspell, so that's where we're off to now." "When are you guys leaving?" "In about a week. You'll be coming with, won't you?" Lune thought about it. He found it strange that he was even thinking about it, but he was. He'd grown used to his laid-back life. Over the past week and a half, he had not done much in the field of adventuring. Then he remembered his patron's words. How close was he to breaking his pact? Did he care anymore? But the vampires last night, the werewolves, Strahd von Zarevich. "Yeah, I'll be coming with," Lune said with a sense of finality. "Good," Locke grinned. "We'll be leaving at nightfall on Sunday." A few minutes passed, and everyone left the Lazy Leprechaun. Asusamir, Kreshman, and James all said their farewells as they went back to their abodes. Lune was still smoking his pipe as Locke gazed into the night sky. Locke packed a pipe, lit it, and began puffing away. Lune started staring into the dark blue night sky. Locke spoke into the dark. That blind priest. Lune looked at Locke through the side of his eye. Lumiere. You know him, yes? Yes, he's my traveling companion. He's working with Father Charles currently to cure a spiritual ailment. So he's like your squire? Some may say, yes. I will permit you to take him with us, should he choose to come. Lune nodded and went back to stargazing. Time passed. Oh, yeah, the oath. Locke pulled out one of the silver coins. Let me press this on your forehead. Lune knelt down and Locke pressed a coin against Lune's temple. Repeat after me, Locke said. I humbly swear my life to protect the weak. I humbly swear my life to protect the weak. To fight off monster and man who might attack those who cannot defend themselves. To fight off monster and man who would attack those who cannot defend themselves. I pledge my life to the Midnight Queen, may her stars never fall. I pledge my life to the Midnight Queen, may her stars never fall. Locke removed the coin from Lune's head. I hereby mark you as a knave of the Legion of Stars. Welcome aboard. The coin morphed into a silver band with an ornate constellation on it. Locke handed it to Lune, who put it on his right middle finger. See you in a week. Locke turned and melted into the night's dark. Lune went back to his apartment and collapsed on the couch. He once again found himself standing in an open white void with a thin layer of water perfectly reflecting what was above it. Lune turned and saw yet another pale winter elf. He bowed deeply as Lune met his gaze. Hello, child. I am Somsir, one of your first ancestors. We have much to discuss. A set of chairs and a table appeared from sparkling dust. Somsir sat down and directed Lune to the other chair. Lune sat, and Somsir started explaining ancient stories. Lune learned of his bloodline and place in the old warrior caste. Until the end of the Second Age, the Ovois family was a part of the warrior caste much like other houses. The castes were only ended at the beginning of Tel'adar's Third Age, with Polskins winning the Great Wars. Among the warrior caste, the Ovois house was seen as a holy family. They were servants of Selûne rather than Corellin, the elvish goddess of war. The Ovois house would traverse lands of Tel'adar and slay the creatures of darkness as Selûne's mortal combatants in her war against Bane, Shar, and Serek. Vampires, werewolves, and tyrants all fell before the silver blades of the Ovois house. As nimble, lightweight fighters, the Elvish house typically served as recon, lone monster hunters, or assassins. Nocturmen, the blade from beyond, as it used to be known, was a great asset in this. It could cut through anything and never get dull. 'Twas perfect for killing monsters and monsters' men. Then there was the curse of Strahd. In the midst of the Second Age, he came and plagued the nation with vampires. Nearly all the Ovois house died out to the vicious beasts. Two of the house, a man and his wife, stole away in hiding, and were the last to survive the house. They then sired one named Saurus. And that is where you come in, Somsir said. Because of Strahd? Yes. Lune's shoulders dropped, and I released him. No, you didn't. That idiot dragonborn Osama did. You acted aptly, though you misunderstood the spell you cast, and in the way that your blood demanded. Somsir set down the wine he conjured, and it, as well as the table he summoned, dissipated into luminescent white dust. Anyway, I was sent to fill you in since your father never had the chance. However, we have run out of time. You'll be waking up soon. The white world around Lune started to dissolve into blackness. Then his eyes flittered open. Lune went back to work and informed Emil that he would be leaving at the end of the week. Lune then persuaded Lumiere to come with him. Well, really, Lune just said that they were leaving, and Lumiere followed. In the late afternoon on Sunday, Lune saddled and mounted Stardust, his fey mare, and rode her from her rented stable out to the city gate. Lune and Lumiere exited the gate at nightfall and met up with the other 10 legionnaires. Almost all of them were doubled up on horses, besides James and Locke. James rode a white horse with black stockings and spots. Locke rode a black stallion. He looked even more ominous now than he was still wearing his black cloak, which seemed to melt and merge with his horse. Locke rode to the front of the party. Legionnaires! Everyone quieted down. Locke continued. Let us set off for Wildspell. Everyone has their rations, yes? There were calls of yup and yeah that echoed through the group. Good. Then we shall be off. For those of you with weaker constitutions, I would like to apologize. Due to the Civil War, we're going to have to travel off-road for quite a while, as we will be avoiding towns that might want to enlist us. So, yes, we will be camping for most of these days as well. Prepare to rough it. Locke then turned his horse and led the Legion of Stars northwest, in a direct line towards Silk Hollow, riding off the King's Highway and straight through the grasslands towards an unknown town. Legion of Stars is written and performed by Alex Peer. The world of Tel'adar is created by one Luke Warner, and all of this is produced by Studio Warlock. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to our Patreon, where you can pay $5 to get all of these scripts early and see some exclusive artwork once I get around to actually doing it. And if you don't want to pay the $5, then you can support the show by going to our YouTube channel and clicking that little red subscribe button, making it turn gray. That'll actually help the show, and it doesn't cost you anything. But besides that, this has been Chapter 7. It's a bit shorter of a chapter. I hope that you enjoyed it. And until next time, we here at Studio Warlock would like to say safe travels and happy hunting.